Although the other hadith from Brother Sharif Oda, he said that it's about Ad-Dajjal. He said, أخوفني عليكم إن يخرج وأنا فيكم فأنا حجيجه دونكم وإن يخرج ولست فيكم فامرؤ حجيج نفسه.
Translate.
Again. He said that when the Dajjal will appear and I will be among you, that's Hazrath Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
If he appears and I am among you.
Yes. Then I will be Hajijuhu, that means I will be the person who will present the debate
on behalf of Islam.
Yes. And if I will not be among you, then everybody will be responsible for his own debate.
Repeat that, if I'm not among you.
وإن يخرج ولست فيكم فامرؤ حجيج نفسه.
Right. The next.
Next, إنه خارج خلة بين الشام والعراق ويمر بالخربة فيقول لها أخرج كنوزك فتتبعه كنوزها كيعاسيب النحل.
I mean, we read the whole hadith and translate it, then we'll answer the question.
Okay. إذ أوحى الله إلى عيسى إني قد أخرجت عبادا لي لا يدان لأحد بقتالهما فحرز عبادي إلى الطور ويبعث الله يأجوج ومأجوج وهم من كل حدب ينسلون فيمر أوائلهم على بحيرة طبرية فيشربون ما فيها ويمر آخرهم فيقولون لقد كان بهذه مرة ماء قوله لقد كان بهذه مرة ماء ثم يسيرون حتى ينتهوا إلى جبل الخمر وهو جبل بيت المقدس فيقولون لقد قتلنا من في الأرض هلم فلنقتل من في السماء فيرمون بنشابهم إلى السماء فيرد الله عليهم نشابهم مخضوبة دما وفي رواية ابن حجر فإني قد أنزلت عبادا لي لا يدي لأحد بقتالهم. Then he said that the Dajjal will...
You haven't read the word Hajij, that hadith about Inni Hajijun. You began with a different hadith,
yes,
which said that if the Dajjal appears in my time, then I'll be Hajij.
Yes.
And now you have read a different hadith altogether.
Yes, because he wrote them in the same way. He did not separate them, he has combined them all together.
The two different hadiths which he has combined.
Yes.
So that Hajij one was before this or
Yes.
after this?
It was before this.
So that is why I asked you to read in continuation.
Yes.
Start from reading the hadith of Hajij and then enter this hadith.
Yes. So for the hadith of Hajij, he just ended up, he did not mention the whole hadith, but for the Hajij, but he just ended up here.
Only this. Read whatever he has said.
Okay. قال الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أخوفني عليكم إن يخرجوا وأنا فيكم فأنا حجيجه دونكم وإن يخرج ولست فيكم فامرؤ حجيج نفسه.
فامرؤ.
فامرؤ, which means that everybody is responsible.
Yeah. This is how he began with.
Yes.
And then he turned to the second hadith in which Yajuj Majuj appeared at the time of Jesus Christ, or the future Jesus, whoever he is. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. And now the question.
The question he wants to know Hazur's comment on this, and also he wants to know that the destiny of the Ummah, is it linked to the land of Palestine or not?
It's okay. These hadiths which have been presented must be taken in totality with other similar hadith. It is wrong to pick up only one hadith during the threatened Iraq war and start speaking of Palestinians and Iraqis and all that. This is what most people do these days. During the last Gulf War, they presented me with only this hadith, with the possibility of it supplying to the war in Iraq. Now, it simply does not apply there, because it speaks of Allah's help And these ahadiths were similar in nature. They speak of the destruction of the Dajjal at the hands of those Muslims who are fighting. But not directly with their hands, because there is no hands, but Allah will destroy them. Such ahadith mention this, that God will see to it that the Dajjal and his lashkar and his army are destroyed, but not by those whom they attack. But Allah's decree will see to it. I'm talking of my impression, which has been created by reading many ahadith on this subject, and which were sent to me during the last war, which was an invasion of America, by America, of Middle Eastern countries, particularly Iraq. Now, the attention of all the listeners I want to draw to this fact, that if those hadiths were true, then what happened during that war and after it was not true, not according to the hadith. And that is what I had been pointing out all through my answers. That don't be emotional about hasty applications of hadith to a specific situation. Take all the ahadith of the future events in totality. Then you will have to either reject some as contradictory to the most, or you have to interpret them in a way that the subject of these different ahadith is reconciled. They come to support, and that can only happen if we do not take these ahadith over literally. And also we should concede that parts of these ahadith have been interpolated, and people with certain situations in mind have added to these ahadith to suit their purpose. If you do not follow this policy of understanding the message, then you will go completely wrong, and all you will be able to prove would be that these hadiths did not come true, or they are contradictory, and the whole subject is confused, and we do not get any message from it. First say this, and then I'll speak my own mind as to what I understand from these. The second most important principle, which must never be sacrificed and should always be adhered to, is the principle that when the Quran is clear about things and makes definite prophecies, then any so-called ahadith which contradict those prophecies, which say things different to the Quranic words, could not be the word of Hazrath Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether they are reported in Bukhari or in any other hadith. The Quran is with us. God has given guarantee that it's not changed. And the specific verses which I have in mind are so clear that there can be no ambiguity about their application. Keeping that in mind, if some ahadith are reported which try to alter the prophecies of the Quran, most certainly that could not be the word of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Absolutely not. They could be words of some other people attributed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the word of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to be translated metaphorically in a manner that it completely coincides with the Quranic prophecies. That's the only way of accepting them as genuine ahadith. I'm thinking of this, I'm talking of this because the question of Palestinians is specifically raised. If you follow these hadith, talk of Palestine and this and that, a completely different scenario develops from this understanding of these hadith. If Palestinians as such must be defended by God and they must emerge victorious as Palestinians, there is no such prophecy in the Holy Quran whatsoever. So يرثها عبادي الصالحون.
إن
الأرض يرثها عبادي الصالحون. Al-Ard is Palestine. يرثها عبادي الصالحون. Where is it mentioned يرثها al-Palestiniun? Not at all. The loss of this land to Palestinians indicates that those Palestinians in whose time the earth was lost were not Ibad al-Salihin, not Ibad al-Salihun. Otherwise, try to reconcile these two different things. The Quran says, Innal arda yarithuha ibadi as-salihun. Correct? And the same land is lost to ibadi as-salihun. Can it be possible? Clear that no man on earth can dare to contradict this fact that when the land was lost to the Palestinians, they were not ibadi as-salihun. Otherwise, what is the fun of letting the land lost to ibadi as-salihun, then returning it to the ibadi as-salihun? Palestinians, in their love of their land and in over-enthusiasm, misinterpret the prophecies of the Quran to suit their purpose and run for those hadiths which in some way are according to their wishes. But you can't defeat the Quran. It's impossible. It is so clear that it does not permit you to alter the meaning it contains. Like this verse, if there is any Palestinian who can accept this challenge, let him try his hand at this verse. See? So first of all, this should be clarified to our Ahmadi Palestinians and other Palestinians all alike. The love of the land is good, but where were they when the land was lost to them because of their own follies? Have they changed since? Have they rectified their behaviors? Have they become better Muslims now? I see otherwise. I think their forefathers, to whom this land was lost, in comparison were better Muslims. Yet they had committed follies so that they appeared in the sight of Allah as non-ibadi as-salihun. Translate this and then I'll turn to other parts. Now, from the historical evidence of what happened during the creation of Israel, we can prove without fear of contradiction. All sensible, honest people today will agree with that those people, those Palestinians to whom Palestine belonged, did not act like al-Ibadu Salihun at the time of the attempts of Israelites and the British people to carve a country out of the Palestinian land and hand it over to the Jews. They could not have done without full participation of the Palestinians who occupied that land. So they became extremely materialistic. they wanted to gain their immediate benefits out of the lands which they owned. And they had been warned not to do it, or they will help create a state of Israel within them. Yet they did not listen to it. If they thought their land was worth 100 pounds and they were offered 1,000 pounds for that, they simply could not resist it. They did not know that after a while the whole area will not mean anything to them. Their money will lose value and they will not be able to do anything out of that money. So it was sheer stupidity on the part of those people who helped Israel create the state of Israel among themselves. It was then that my late father, or the late Khalifa al-Masih, Hazrath Mirza Tahir Ahmad, wrote an article, and it was widely published among the Palestinians, begging them, for God's sake, not to sell their property to Israelites or the Jews. It will kick back, it will help them create the state of Israel among them. During that period, the Jewish people, as far as the Muslim population was concerned, was very small. And the lands they owned was too insignificant to permit them to create a state of Israel based on their own lands. This is obviously evident to every historian. And the British also advised them, we will help you, but first of all, you try to increase your area of ownership, so that at least it should become feasible to build an independent political state on that small area. However small it may be, but it should be some area which should be sensibly understood to be a state, a small state, all right, but a state in itself. For this purpose, all the rich Jewries of the world started pouring in their money to disown and repel the Muslim Palestinian owners of those lands. And they fell prey to it. Do they understand them to be al-ibadiyus salihun? Was it an act of salihiyat? So Allah never forgives those people who do not help themselves. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. So when these Palestinians behaved as non-ibadiyus salihun, Allah let the land skip from under their feet and go over to the Jews, whoever they were. But the Muslims did not have the right to possess that land anymore, because they had been warned by the Quran. Jews had not been warned. So such time comes when a people who have been warned by the Holy Quran suffer from their own folly, and Allah does not care who occupies their land later on. But when they reform themselves, then the promise is realized in favor of those people who reform themselves and enter that category which is referred to in the Holy Quran as Innal arda yarithuha ibadiyus salihun. Now, against all this explanation, if you quote any number of hadiths which are so-called hadiths, according to me, which contradict the prophecy of the Quran, which contradict the realities of modern history, then I cannot believe them to be the word of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If anyone does, he does no honor to him. Understand? Now this is very important, that the Palestinians should understand one thing. During the previous Gulf War and during the present threat of the war, they're starting dancing in the streets, so jubilant, so happy, and so sure that this time Iraq will come to their aid and Iraq will be able to defeat the world powers. It was so naive, so stupid, and made the world laugh at their jubilations. And they worsened the image of Islam, is already blemished by the Westerners and the Muslim scholars themselves. Why didn't they turn to the Quran about the issue of al-ard? If they had turned to the Quran, they had no right to jubilate, because the Holy Quran does not mention, even does not give the slightest mention of any Muslim country, let alone Iraq, to come to the help of Palestinians. Read the Quran. There is not the slightest reference. The only reference we find in a hadith to this situation is that God has not given anyone two hands to successfully fight the Jal or Yajuj Majuj. So when the message of the Quran is so clear, when the message of hadith, this hadith is so clear, then how could they imagine a different thing to happen? No Muslim country will be able to help Palestinians against the superpowers who have captured their lands, and against Israel, which is growing more powerful every day. Because the Holy Quran does not refer to this formula of reoccupation. It mentions a completely different formula. Turn to God. Be His righteous people. Be His righteous servants. And He will see to it that you return to your land, and whoever occupies them, God will snatch from his hands and his occupation and hand it over to His beloved Ibadiyus Salihun. This is the advice which I rendered then. This is the advice which I rendered today. All the rest is just wishful thinking. It does not mean anything. I will turn to these hadiths tomorrow then, whatever is left of them. If you can translate it within time, well and good. If not, continue tomorrow. And the remaining part of these hadiths, after this dominant explanation, which covers the true meaning of these hadiths, or rejects them as not being not hadiths, I'll turn to these hadiths tomorrow again. Right? Assalamu alaikum.